What's going on, folks? Hamilton here with the Trading Initiative. In this week's Friday Flow, dated June 26th, 2026, topic of the week, Lag-7. The Mag-7 are underperforming not only on an absolute basis, but on a relative basis. How much longer can this possibly be going on? The S&P 500 still hanging out around all-time highs. When will it eventually correct, if it will? Let's go ahead and get started here, folks. First things first, a little disclaimer here. Nothing presented by TTI should be considered personalized financial or investment advice. All material is provided strictly for educational and informational purposes only. Let's go ahead and start off, as we always do, looking at weekly asset performance, going down the list here. Very surprising to see that even though the market is down this week, the S&P 500 down nearly 2%, NASDAQ down nearly 4%, we actually saw a pop in market breadth, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Yes, more stocks actually went up this week than went down, even if the largest stocks this week did go down. We also saw a positive move in bonds. Could be a potential run up due to the Kevin Warsh stuff going on, the supply side framework that I talk about all the time. It is reassuring to see bonds starting to catch a bid though. And then the Russell 2000 small caps really outperforming, particularly the large cap stocks. The Russell 2000 has outperformed the S&P 500 this year. Who had that on their bingo sheet? Not me. Mid caps doing well. Really, a lot of things did really well this week. Really, the things that didn't do well, growth assets, risk assets, and in particular, the Mag-7 related stuff. The Lag-7 are breaking down, folks. There's no other way to put it. Looking at your ETF mags here, we're breaking down 4 weeks in a row now on an absolute basis. As a basket of stocks, they are coming down. But not only that, they're coming down against the S&P 500. Mags against the S&P 500, we're down in a new 52-week lows, folks. So not only are the largest and most important stocks in the market breaking down on an absolute basis, they're also breaking down on a relative basis. And you have to ask yourself, as an investor, as a trader, when or if will this matter to the broader index? The broader index, being the S&P 500, has held up remarkably well in the face of a Lag-7 sell-off. Question is, do the indexes catch down to the Lag-7? Or do the Lag-7 eventually find a floor and then catch up to the indexes? We don't know the answer to that right now, but we do know market breadth is performing pretty okay, right? We'll look at that in a second. Mag-7, monthly performance coming up on the end of the month here, folks. Look at the incredible underperformance here from some of the most important stocks in the market. Microsoft down 17%, Amazon down 15%, Meta, Tesla, Google, Apple, Nvidia. None of these are spared, folks. Every single one is down massively. The S&P 500 down nearly 3% on the month, and yet the largest stocks are down multiples of that. That is absolutely insane. Microsoft leading to the downside here. As a matter of fact, I believe Microsoft is having its worst month ever against the NASDAQ 100. The worst month ever on a relative basis against the NASDAQ 100. Just absolute carnage out there if you're exclusively focused on the Mag-7 stocks. The S&P 500 is finally testing its 50-day moving average. Obviously, this is an intermediary moving average that we look at. Really, the most important one is the 200-day, and yes, we have come down and broken below it a couple of times this bull market cycle, but as long as price quickly recovers it and slopes, the 200-day moving average slopes to the upside, how much damage is there really going on? As of right now, for the first time in the last couple of months, the S&P 500 is testing its 50-day moving average. It's not the end of the world, folks, although I will point out that momentum is really getting crushed here. It's not just from a trend perspective, it's also from a momentum perspective. The Mag-7 are causing the S&P 500 to get weighed down at the top, and we're starting to see that roll into some momentum as well, unfortunately. We'll see if that ends up actually causing a bigger correction in the S&P 500. Could we come back down and retest this 693, 694 level? Maybe we could. We'll dive into the data as that comes in, but as of right now, this is just a routine pullback to the 50-day moving average with a special note on the momentum. Now, we've been sitting here talking about market breadth for this entire quick little webinar session. The S&P 500 might be down this month and might be down this week, but its equally weighted counterpart, RSP, is up. Not only is it up, but it's going to be closing at all-time highs. Folks, it's just the Mag-7 stocks are pulling everything down. The Mag-7 stocks are pulling the index down, while everything else within the S&P 500, or at least most things, are actually doing okay. So when we look at the S&P 500 from an equal weight standpoint, meaning the Mag-7 do not have this overwhelming majority of a percentage of the ETF, you can see that actually a lot of stocks are still going up. We like to call this a stock picker's market. I'm not going to sit here and say it's good or it's bad, but what I will say is if you can look outside of kind of the top 10 stocks that most people want to talk about, there are opportunities out there in the market. Another way that you can look at this is the percentage of stocks within the S&P 500 above their short-term, intermediate term, and long-term moving average. Again, the 20-day, 50-day, and 200-day moving average. This week was constructive. Again, it doesn't seem like it, particularly if you're glued to the Mag-7 or strictly looking at the index itself, but the percentage of stocks this week actually went up. 20-day moving average 61% of the S&P 500 is now trading above it, 63 above the 50-day moving average, and 61 above the 200-day moving average. These aren't the most bullish numbers in the world, but they're absolutely not bearish, folks. They're not bearish. A majority of the market within the S&P 500 is actually above their short, intermediate, and long-term moving average. So again, the question, does the Lag-7 catch up to the indexes, or do the indexes catch down to the Lag-7 here? We don't know the answer, but what I will say is if the market is bearish moving forward, it's not because of market breadth. Market breadth looks very resilient here. I will point out that risk cooled off in June. Okay, I think it's important when we look at this month, which sectors did well and which sectors did not. I would park industrials and financials as probably a little bit more of a risk on than risk off, particularly when you think about the types of stuff and that go inside of those two sectors, and then also how they fit into the broader market and the economy, et cetera. But you have to give a shout out to tech down 5%, consumer discretionary down 5.4%, and comms down 7.99%. You absolutely have to shout that out. You cannot sit here and say that it was a great month for risk assets when you have three of the most risk-on sectors in the market down on the month and underperforming the S&P 500. Again, the S&P 500 down around 3%, tech, consumer discretionary, and comms down a hell of a lot more. When we look at this from a weekly period fund flow, which is a little different than what we look at when we look at our Saturday, Sunday, Monday flow reports, when we just look at over the last couple of days, where is money flowing in on an ETF basis, you can see again, the money is flowing into some more of the defensively positioned areas of the market. Not always, right? Not everything, but on a weekly standpoint, utilities catching a majority of the flow is generally not going to be risk on. Healthcare, to a certain extent, not certainly risk on. Consumer staples, not incredibly risk on. I do want to point out that if you go back and look over the last month, not all of these are going to stick the same. It's a very volatile time in the market right now. It's end of quarter rebalancing. They're figuring their stuff out for July and into the summer months. Totally understand that this is not necessarily screaming, get out of everything and you know, go on vacation for the summer and just forget about everything. Because if we think about it, last year, if you did that, you missed out on some of the best opportunities in the market. So yes, a lot of volatility right now. Definitely not screaming at you to get out of everything, but definitely have to be a little bit more cautious before you start buying stuff. What I will point out is from an industry standpoint, if you look at this on a month-to-date basis, there's a lot of new opportunities popping up. As a matter of fact, airlines are pressing up into all-time highs, and they're up 13% this month alone. Home builders up 12.5%, insurance up 10%, regional banks up nearly 8%, biotech up nearly 8%, biotech breaking out to all-time highs as well. So yeah, there was a lot of weakness in the market when it comes to risk, but there's also a lot of opportunities out there if you're willing to go out there and do the homework and figure out where that strength is actually coming through. Biotech being one of those areas right now, IBB, breaking out to all-time highs. This is on the weekly here, folks. 178 was the line in the sand for the all-time high. Breakout going all the way back to really previous cycle high, late 2021. We got the breakout here. We took a couple positions this week inside of TTI, inside of the biotech industry group. I think this is probably going to be an area moving forward through the summer months that you should be focused on if you're looking at owning breakouts in strength. And then also regional banks. Here's your monthly chart here. This is going to be an all-time high close finally for regional banks on the monthly. And then when we look at this from a relative standpoint against the broader financial sector, we're about to break out as well. So not only do we have an absolute breakout already here, but we're very close to a relative breakout as well. This is generally what you want to see on a risk on higher beta area of the market, which is absolutely regional banks. Earnings start in approximately 3-ish weeks. I think 19, 20 days out is when we see the JP Morgans, the Morgan Stanleys, et cetera, start to report. So if you're looking once again at owning strength, particularly with the catalyst coming up relatively soon, you got to be looking at things like financials, but in particular, go out and look at the regional banks, folks. This week, the US dollar stuck the breakout. King dollar breaks above 100. You can't have a great market if the dollar is screaming higher. Let's go ahead and put that out there. But a rising dollar doesn't necessarily mean stocks are going to get crushed as well. There is an opportunity for stocks to do well with a rising dollar, as long as the dollar is not breaking out and going parabolic like we saw towards the end of 2025, right? That's really when we started to see the weakness come in prior to the Trump tariff tantrums. Does this end up leading into a soft summer? Maybe it could. The jury's out right now. We're not entirely sure. But the main point here is we finally got the first crossover to the upside in our moving averages here on the weekly with the 20-week and the 50-week moving averages. We just want to keep our eyes focused on the dollar. The dollar breaking above 100 tends to be a little bit more difficult for risk assets to go up. It's not the end of the world, but we have to define the environment. And if the dollar is catching flow, if investors are preferring to own the dollar than stocks, that's something that you're going to have to be competing with when you go to put your dollars in stocks for trades, right? Is the debasement trade dead? I think this is probably my most important chart going back not only this week, but probably over this year. is the fact that Bitcoin, gold, and silver all topped at relatively the same end of January type of time frame, the same time when the dollar, which is inverted here, bottomed. I don't think that's on accident, folks. The dollar bottomed and has been in a relative uptrend and an absolute uptrend since then. And all of the alternative currencies, the dollars, the golds, and the silvers, have been in a downtrend. So again, I ask you, if the dollar is potentially going to start breaking out here, what do you think is going to happen, or what do you think will continue to happen to the dollar, or excuse me, to gold, to silver, and to Bitcoin? I'm not here to tell you one way or the other. I do know that I do not like buying downtrends. And if kind of the king of this debasement trade is breaking out, you got to ask yourself if it's worth the risk of owning any of these three assets at this current valuation. I don't have the answer to that. That's completely up to you. Saw this chart on Twitter. I thought it was interesting. Have semiconductors topped daily, weekly, monthly? I think it's important to understand where we are and how far we've gone in this trend. This is a year-to-date chart on the daily. Yes, we broke out back in late March, early April, and it's basically been parabolic only since then, a little V-shaped recovery type of move here. Have we started to see momentum wane? Yes. Is this an absolute top? Well, when we look at the weekly, it's hard to just stick that and say yes. Obviously, since the bottom of 2022 here, you can see that semiconductors have been arguably the best industry group to own, but not every single week have we gone up. We've gone through periods of sideways consolidation. We've had some pretty nasty pullbacks, but if you want to be long, the best industry group, this bull market cycle, volatility works both ways, folks. It goes really fast, really high. It also comes down. Where are we right now in the grand scheme of things? If you look at this on the monthly chart, going all the way back to when the secular bull market broke out in 2013, well, semiconductors actually look pretty good here. Okay. All I'm going to say is, have semiconductors topped for the cycle? Not yet. Probably. These charts don't look like that. Is there some potential short-term possibility for more chop or pullbacks? Yes. It's up to you on whether or not you want to focus on owning those pullbacks. I'm not here to tell you one way or the other. Inside of TTI, we're going to own more semiconductors as capital flow comes in, as we see financial institutions start to buy this stuff again. As of right now, as you saw in the fund flow stuff, from a tech standpoint, maybe not quite there yet, not quite there. And then the last chart here for the bulls, shout out Mr. Jeffrey Hirsch over at Stock Traders Almanac. The July seasonality tends to be very strong. We've just traded through some relative weakness in June, going back to 1985. This tends to be a really choppy and weak part of the market, but July tends to be a little bit of a mini Christmas. Yes, NASDAQ's 12-day mid-year rally tends to allow these growth stocks that may have had a little bit of a pullback in June to really rally hard. So again, if you're looking to build a short to intermediate term kind of game plan right now, you have seasonality at your back if you're a buyer of stocks. And if you're looking to short, might want to hold off for a week or two and maybe short those pop-ups into the middle of July. It's not the entirety of July that we see a rally, but we tend to see a 12-day move in July that tends to be very good for risk assets and growth assets, okay? If you're looking to contact me, you can sign up for the free newsletter at profitsoverprofits.com. I send out newsletters every day of the week, almost every day of the week. Whatever I think is interesting. It's all based around technical analysis and fund flow, so check that out. If you're interested in paid research and community, take the trades with us, get the flow reports, sit through the webinars. You can join at join.thetradinginitiative.com/join-the-market-blueprint. The link is also in the description below. Please follow me on X. I post there all day. If you really want to get intraday commentary, you want to pick my brain, you can find me at Capital Flows, or you can email me if you have interest in joining the paid community at info@thetradinginitiative.com. Okay, my name is Hamilton. Today is June 26th. Thank you for joining me for the Friday Flow, and I will catch you next Friday.